The fluorescent lights hummed. Overhead in the emergency room, the smell of antiseptic mixed with blood filled the air. Nurse Emma Reyes moved through. The chaos like water flowing around rocks.com, efficient, invisible. "I need you on bed 7. Dr. Harrison barked without looking at her. She nodded. No response needed. 23. Years in nursing had taught her that doctors rarely saw nurses as people. They saw hands. They saw tools. They never saw what she really was. The emergency room. Doors burst open. 2 security guards dragged in a man in handcuffs. His face was covered in blood. His eyes were wild with rage. "Federal prisoner," one guard shouted. Transport vehicle crashed 2 blocks away. Emma's hand paused for just a fraction of a second on the IV bag she was hanging. "Federal prisoner." Her trained eyes scanned him in less than 3 seconds. The tattoos on his neck. The specific kind of restraints. The way the guards positioned themselves. This wasn't just any prisoner. "Get him in room 4, Dr. Harrison ordered. Emma, prepped for sutures in the prisoner's head, suddenly snapped toward the entrance. Emma saw it before anyone else did. The way his pupils dilated. The slight smile that crossed his bloody lips. "They're here," the prisoner whispered. Then the lights went out. Emergency generators kicked in. Red emergency lighting bathed everything in an eerie glow. Screams erupted from patients and families in the waiting room. Dr. Harrison's voice rose above the chaos. "Everyone stay calm. It's just a power outage." But Emma knew better. She heard it, the sound every civilian would miss. The distinctive click of military-grade weapons being loaded outside. The organized footsteps of a tactical team. The subtle hiss of communication. "Devices, Dr. Harrison," Emma said quietly. Her voice was different now, controlled, commanding. "Get everyone away from the windows." "What?" "Emma, don't be ridiculous." Glass exploded inward. 3 canisters rolled across the floor, spewing thick gray smoke. Patients screamed. Nurses ran. Dr. Harrison stood frozen, his clipboard still in his hand. Emma moved. She grabbed an elderly patient from a wheelchair and pulled her behind the nurse's station in one fluid motion. "Stay down," she commanded. Her eyes were scanning, calculating, planning. 6 men in tactical gear poured through the shattered windows. Not police. Not SWAT. The gear was too advanced. Too expensive. The movements too coordinated. Private military contractors. They were here for the prisoner. Nobody move. The lead attacker shouted. His accent was Eastern European. His finger was steady on the trigger. Dr. Harrison finally found his voice. "We're a hospital." "You can't shut up, doctor." One of the attackers grabbed a young nurse by her hair. She cried out in pain. Emma felt the familiar cold settle over her mind. The same cold she'd felt in Kandahar, in Yemen, in places that didn't exist on any official map. "Let her go," Emma said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the chaos like a blade. The lead attacker turned to her. His eyes narrowed behind his mask. "Old woman, sit down before I let her go." Something in Emma's eyes made him hesitate, just for a moment, but Emma had been trained by the best operators in the world. She knew that moments were all you needed. She knew that everyone in this room was about to learn something they could never unlearn. That nurse Emma Reyes was not who she appeared to be, not even close. If you want to see how this story unfolds, make sure you're subscribed. You won't believe what happens next. The lead attacker tightened his grip on his weapon. "You have 3 seconds to sit down." Nurse Emma didn't move. She didn't blink. She simply waited, because in 3 seconds, everything would change. 1. The attacker's voice was steady, confident. He'd done this before, probably dozens of times. 2. Emma's hands hung loose at her sides. Dr. Harrison was whispering urgently. "Emma, please, just sit down. Don't be a hero." But Emma had never been a hero. Heroes acted on impulse, on emotion she had been trained to act on. Calculation 3. The attacker's finger began to squeeze the trigger. Emma moved. Her body became a blur. She closed the 12 feet between them in less than 2 seconds. Her hand struck his wrist with surgical precision, redirecting the barrel away from the hostages. The gun fired. The bullet punched into the ceiling. Before he could react, Emma's elbow connected with his throat. Not hard enough to kill. Hard enough to collapse his airway just enough. He dropped. The other 5 attackers spun toward her. Contact. We have contact. Emma had already rolled behind a medical cart. Syringes and instruments clattered to the floor. Bullets tore through the cart. Metal sparked. Glass shattered. But Emma was no longer there. She was moving through the smoke like a ghost. Years of close-quarters combat training took over. Her body remembered what her mind had filed away. Years ago, the second attacker came around the corner of the nurse's station. Emma was waiting. She grabbed his weapon, twisted it from his grip, and used his own momentum to slam him face first into the wall. He crumpled 2 down. "What the hell is she?" One of them shouted in Russian. Emma understood. Every word. She'd been fluent in 7 languages the last time she counted. Dr. Harrison was staring at her, with his mouth open. His world was breaking apart. The nurse who brought him coffee every morning was dismantling a tactical team. "Emma," he whispered. She didn't have time to answer. The remaining 4 attackers had regrouped. They were smarter now. More cautious. They'd realized she wasn't a nurse. Not just a nurse. One of them spoke into his radio. "Target extraction is compromised. We need backup now." Emma's jaw tightened. Backup meant more civilians in danger. She had to end this fast. "Everyone stay down," she commanded. Her voice carried the weight of authority, the kind of authority that came from leading operations in war zones. She grabbed the weapon from the unconscious attacker at her feet, checked the chamber. 11 rounds. Muscle memory from 1,000 training sessions. The attackers opened fire. Emma dove behind a hospital bed. Bullets ripped through the thin mattress. Feathers from the pillow exploded into the air like snow. She returned fire. Controlled bursts. 3 rounds, 1 attacker went down, clutching his leg. 3 left. Then she heard it. The sound that made her blood run cold. Heavy engines outside. Multiple vehicles, the backup had arrived, and they weren't being subtle anymore. The entire building shook as something massive struck the emergency room. Entrance, an armored vehicle had just driven through the front. "Doors!" civilians screamed. Patients tried to run, but had nowhere to go. Emma's mind raced through scenarios. Calculating odds. Evaluating options. She couldn't fight them all. Not alone. Not without putting everyone here at risk. She needed help. Her hand moved to her chest. Under her SCRUBS for 7 years, she'd worn a necklace. A simple silver chain with a small pendant. Everyone thought it was just jewelry. It wasn't. She pressed the pendant. Once, twice, 3 times. A distress signal. A signal that went directly to Fort Meade. To the Pentagon. 2 people who knew exactly who Emma Reyes really was. But help was at least 20 minutes away. She had to keep everyone alive for 20 minutes, the lead attacker. From the armored vehicle stepped through the rubble. He was bigger than the others. His gear was more expensive. He was the commander. "Nurse," he called out in perfect English. "You've caused us a problem, but we still have 30 hostages. You have 1 weapon. Be smart." Emma stood slowly from behind the hospital bed. Her weapon was aimed steady at his chest. "Oh, you'd be smart," she said quietly. "Leave now. Take your men." "Forget the prisoner," he laughed. "You think you're in control here?" "I know I am." His smile faded. Something in her eyes unsettled him. "Who are you?" Emma didn't answer. She didn't need to, because in the distance, she heard something beautiful. The sound of helicopters. The commander heard them too. His head tilted slightly. His eyes narrowed behind his tactical mask. "You called someone?" he said. It wasn't a question. Emma kept her weapon steady. The helicopters were getting closer. Fast, too. Fast for civilian response. These were military birds. commander's radio crackled. His team was reporting in, panicked voices speaking in multiple languages. "You have incoming military aircraft, sir. We're being painted by targeting systems. Thermal imagery shows at least 40 personnel inbound." The commander's confidence wavered. He looked at Emma with new eyes. Really looked at her, the way she stood, the way she held the weapon, the complete absence of fear in her face. "You're not just a nurse," he said slowly. "No," Emma replied. "I'm not." "Who are you?" The building shook as the first helicopter landed on the roof. Heavy boots thundered through the stairwells. Professional, coordinated, overwhelming. Forced. Emma allowed herself the smallest smile. "I'm the person you should have researched. Before you came here." The commander made his decision. "Fall back," he shouted to his team. "Abort mission. Go, go, go." His men moved like smoke, grabbing their wounded, disappearing through the shattered windows and the destroyed entrance. The armored vehicle roared to life and crashed back out into the street. Within 30 seconds, they were gone. But Emma didn't lower her weapon. She knew what was coming next. The emergency room. Doors burst open again. This time it was different. 20 operators in full tactical gear poured in. Black uniforms. No insignia. Weapons raised. But these weren't attackers. Emma recognized the unit patch on their shoulders. Delta Force. The absolute best America had. They moved through the room like a tide. Securing positions. Checking casualties. Establishing a perimeter. One of them approached Emma. She finally lowered her weapon. "Area secure, ma'am," he said crisply. He was young, maybe 25. His eyes showed respect. Emma nodded. "Casualties?" she asked. "Minor injuries only?" "You contained the situation before we arrived. The prisoner. Still secured in room 4? "We have him." Emma took a deep breath. The adrenaline was beginning to fade. Her hands wanted to shake, but she wouldn't let them. 20-3 years of training. Dr. Harrison stumbled toward her. His face was pale. His hands were trembling. "Emma," he whispered. "What? What just happened? Who are these people? Who are you?" Before she could answer, the Delta operator's radio crackled. "Package inbound. 2 minutes. Clear the LZ." Emma's eyes closed briefly. Package. They'd sent the package. That meant someone very high up had been notified. Someone who knew her real identity. Someone who was coming here personally. "Everyone stay calm," Emma announced to the terrified staff and patients. "The danger is over. Medical personnel, start triage. Focus on the injured." She spoke with natural authority. The kind that made people obey without thinking. Nurses began moving. Checking patients. Dr. Harrison just stared at her. "You're giving orders," he said numbly. "You're giving orders to my staff." "Yes, but you're a nurse." "You're my nurse. You bring me coffee. You file paperwork. I do all those things," Emma said gently. "But I'm also something else." Sound of helicopter blades grew deafening. Black Hawk was landing in the hospital parking lot. The remaining windows that hadn't been shattered vibrated from the rotor. Washed. Emma straightened her scrubs, pulled back her hair, wiped the dust and blood from her face. She needed to look presentable. The Delta operators formed 2 lines, at attention. Dr. Harrison watched in confusion as they stood rigid, formal like they were waiting for. Royalty, the Black Hawk's door. Opened. A figure stepped out, even from a distance. The uniform was unmistakable, 4 stars on each shoulder. A General. Dr. Harrison's legs went weak. That's General Morrison. The General Morrison, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff." Emma said nothing. The general walked through the destroyed emergency room. His shoes crunched on broken glass. Every Delta operator snapped to attention as he passed. He walked directly to Emma. The entire room went silent. Patients, nurses, doctors, security guards. Everyone was watching. "General, Morrison stopped 3 feet in front of Emma. His face was weathered, hard. The face of a man who'd made impossible decisions. But his eyes showed something else. Respect. He raised his hand in a crisp salute. "Colonel?" "Reyes," he said clearly. "It's good to see you again." The words hung in the air like smoke. Colonel Reyes. Dr. Harrison's clipboard clattered to the floor around the room. Jaws dropped. Eyes went wide. Emma returned the salute. Sharp. Perfect. Military precision. "General Morrison." "Sir." Her voice had changed completely. Gone was the soft, deferential tone of Nurse Emma. This voice carried command, authority. Years of leading men and women into impossible situations. "Colonel," the general said. Emma lowered her hand, but remained standing straight. The general's eyes swept the room, taking in the destruction, the wounded, the frightened civilians. "Situation report," he said quietly. "Private military contractors attempted prisoner extraction," Emma replied. 12 hostiles, initial contact. Reinforcements arrived mid-engagement. I neutralized 3, wounded 2 others. Remaining forces retreated upon arrival of friendly units. 0 civilian fatalities. Prisoner remains secure." She delivered it like a mission briefing, clean, efficient, professional. The general nodded. "Outstanding work, as always." "Thank you, sir." Dr. Harrison found his voice. It came out as barely a whisper. "Colonel." "Emma, you're a colonel." The general turned to face him. His expression was unreadable. "Dr. Harrison, is it?" "Yes, sir." "What Colonel Reyes does here, the role she plays in this hospital, is part of an active deep cover operation. Do you understand what that means?" Dr. Harrison shook his head. He looked like he might faint. "It means," the general continued, "that everything you thought you knew about this woman is classified. Her real identity, her service record, her capabilities. All of it falls under national security." "But she's been here for 7 years," Dr. Harrison stammered. "She's just a nurse. She brings coffee. She files paperwork." She saved your life today," the general interrupted. "She saved everyone in this room. That's what matters." Emma remained silent. She'd been through this before. In other places, other covers, the moment when her 2 worlds collided was always painful. A young nurse named Jessica stepped forward. Her voice was shaking but curious. "Ma'am?" "Colonel, I don't understand. You taught me how to start IVs. You showed me how to calm frightened patients. You're the best nurse I've ever worked with." Emma's expression softened slightly. "I am a nurse, Jessica. That part was never fake. I believe in this work. I believe in helping people. But it's also something else." "Yes." General checked his watch. "Colonel, I need to debrief you. Privately, of course, sir." They moved to a corner of the emergency room. Delta operators formed a loose perimeter, keeping others at a distance. But in the chaos and confusion, Dr. Harrison drifted close enough to hear fragments of their conversation. "Can't maintain your cover here anymore," the general was saying. "Too many people saw. Too many questions." Emma's response was quiet but firm. "Sir, with respect, I'm needed here. These people need care. This hospital is understaffed. If I leave, Emma..." The general's voice was gentle now, less formal. "You've given 7 years to this assignment. You've provided invaluable intelligence on the medical supply black market. The networks you've uncovered have saved countless lives. But your cover is blown. You know the protocol." Emma looked around the emergency room at the patients she'd treated, the staff she'd trained, the hallways she'd walked every day for 7 years. "I know, sir." "We have a new assignment for you. Something more suited to your obvious skills, I understand." The general placed a hand on her shoulder, a rare gesture from such a senior officer. "You did good work here, Emma. Real good work. But it's time to come home." Emma nodded slowly. Dr. Harrison couldn't stay silent anymore. He pushed past a Delta operator. "Wait. General, please. I don't care who she is. I don't care what she's done. I need her here. This hospital needs her. We're barely keeping up as it is. If you take her, Dr. Harrison, Emma said quietly. It's okay. It's not okay. He surprised himself with his own intensity. You're the best nurse I've ever worked with. The patients love you. The staff respects you. You can't just leave. I don't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Emma smiled sadly. Not in my world. The general's radio crackled. Sir, FBI's here. They want jurisdiction over the prisoner. Tell them to wait, the general responded. He turned back to Emma.
Oh, yeah.
You have 24 hours to wrap things up here. Say your goodbyes. Collect your personal effects. A team will arrive tomorrow night to extract you. Yes, sir. The general saluted again. Emma returned it. Then he was gone, striding out of the emergency room with his Delta escort. The helicopters lifted off. The roar of engines faded into the distance. Emma was left standing in the ruins of her cover. Nurses and doctors stared at her. Some with awe, some with fear, some with confusion. She was no longer just Emma the nurse. She was Colonel Emma Arrayas, and everything had changed. The next 24 hours passed in a blur. FBI agents swarmed the hospital, taking statements, collecting evidence, asking questions that Emma couldn't answer. Her real identity was classified above their clearance level. They left frustrated and confused. The hospital administration held emergency meetings. They wanted answers. They wanted explanations. They got neither. All they received was a phone call from the Pentagon telling them that Nurse Emma Reyes was a matter of national security and further inquiry would be considered. Obstruction of justice. The meetings ended quickly after that. Emma worked her final shift. She moved through the emergency room like always, checking vitals, administering medications, holding the hand of a frightened child, while the doctor said a broken arm. But nothing was the same. Staff members watched her differently. Now, some kept their distance, uncertain, afraid of what she really was. Others looked at her with new respect. With admiration, Jessica, the young nurse Emma had trained, approached her during a quiet moment. Colonel Reyes, she said hesitantly. Just Emma, please. I don't know what to call you anymore. Emma smiled sadly. Emma is fine. That part was always real. Was any of it real? Jessica's voice cracked. The coffee breaks. The late-night talks about patients. The time you stayed for extra hours to help me learn wound care. All of it was real, Emma said firmly. My cover was being a nurse. But the nursing wasn't the cover. Do you understand? Jessica thought about it, then nodded slowly. I think so. I wanted to be here, Emma continued. I chose this assignment because I believe in this work. Helping people, saving lives. That was never fake. So you're really leaving? I have to. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. You're the best nurse I've ever known, and apparently the most dangerous person in the building. Emma laughed. A real laugh. It felt good. I'm just trained differently, she said. Dr. Harrison had been avoiding her all day, but as her shift neared its end, he finally approached. Emma, can we talk? Privately? They went to his office. He closed the door, sat heavily in his chair. For a long moment, he said nothing. I feel like a fool, he finally said. Don't. 7 years. 7 years you worked under me. I treated you like just another nurse. I was dismissive, sometimes rude. I never saw you. Really saw you? That was the point, Emma said gently. I needed to be invisible. But you were never just invisible. You were remarkable. Even as a nurse, the patients loved you. The staff trusted you. You had this way of knowing exactly what was needed before anyone asked. Military training, Emma said with a slight smile. Anticipating needs. Reading situations, and I never noticed. Dr. Harrison shook his head. Colonel, You're a colonel. That's equivalent to a hospital chief of staff. Hire and I treated you like an assistant. I was an assistant. That was my job, but it wasn't really your job, was it? Emma sat down across from him. Dr. Harrison, I've been many things. Nurse, soldier, intelligence operative, combat medic in Afghanistan, field surgeon in Syria, undercover asset in 3 countries you've never heard of. But every role taught me something valuable. Being a nurse here taught me patience, humility, the importance of small kindnesses. You're making it sound noble, he said. But I was an ass to you, sometimes, Emma agreed. But you're also a brilliant doctor who saved hundreds of lives. You're allowed to be human. Dr. Harrison looked at her with something close to awe. Who are you really, Emma? She considered the question. I'm someone who decided a long time ago that the best way to serve my country wasn't always on a battlefield. Sometimes it's in a hospital. Sometimes it's protecting people who don't even know they're in danger. The prisoner. The attack. That wasn't random, was it? No. We'd been tracking that prisoner for 2 years. He's connected to an international trafficking network. Medical supplies. Pharmaceuticals. Some of the medications that disappeared from this hospital's inventory over the years, that was him. His network. Dr. Harrison's eyes widened. You were investigating our hospital. I was protecting it. There's a difference. How many people know about you? Very few. The general, some people at the Pentagon, a handful of operatives in the field. And now, you and your staff? What will happen to us? Nothing. You'll be asked to sign non-disclosure agreements. You'll be told never to speak about this. And you'll move on with your lives. And you, Emma stood. I'll move on to the next assignment. The next cover. The next mission. Don't you ever want to just stop, be yourself? Emma paused at the door. This is myself, doctor. All of it. The soldier and the nurse. The operative and the caregiver. I'm not 2 different people. I'm just one person trying to do good in a complicated world. She left his office. Her locker had already been cleaned out. Her personal effects packed. 23 years of nursing experience, reduced to 1 small box. As she walked through the emergency room for the last time, staff members stopped what they were doing. Some saluted awkwardly. Some nodded. Some just watched in silence. Emma paused at the door. She turned back. One last look at the place that had been her home for 7 years. Take care of each other, she said. Simply, then she was gone. Into the night. Into the next mission. Into whatever came next for Colonel Emma Reyes. 6 months. Later, Dr. Harrison sat in his office, reviewing charts. The emergency room had returned to normal, or as normal as it could be. They'd hired 3 new nurses to replace Emma. None of them were as good. The coffee tasted different. The workflow felt clumsy. Something essential was missing. He thought about her every day, wondered where she was, what she was doing, if she was safe. His phone rang. Unknown number. Dr. Harrison. Doctor, this is Deputy Director Chen from the FBI. I have some questions about a case from 6 months ago. Harrison's stomach tightened. I signed an NDA. I can't discuss. This isn't about that. This is about a patient who was treated in Ura that same night. A young woman. She came in with suspicious injuries. You treated her for a broken arm and facial lacerations, Harrison thought back. That night was chaos. But he vaguely remembered, yes, I think so. What about her? She disappeared from protective custody 3 days later. We've been trying to find her. She's a key witness in a trafficking case. Harrison's mind clicked. Emma had said something about trafficking networks. I don't know where she is, he said honestly. It's fine. But if you hear anything, please contact us immediately. This woman's testimony could bring down a major criminal organization. The call ended. Harrison sat back in his chair. He wondered if Emma was still working that case. Still protecting people, still being the silent guardian that no one saw. His computer chimed. New email. The subject line was blank. The sender was a random string of numbers. He opened it hesitantly. The message contained no words. Just an image. A photograph of a small medical clinic in what looked like a remote village, somewhere with mountains in the background. In the corner of the photo, barely visible, was a woman wearing scrubs, dark hair pulled back. Kind eyes, strong hands. Emma. She was somewhere in the world. Still helping people. Still serving. Harrison smiled. He deleted the email as he knew he should, but the image stayed in his memory that evening. Jessica found him in the break room. Dr. Harrison, you okay? Yes, he said. Just thinking about her. He nodded. I think about her too, Jessica said quietly. Every time I'm with a difficult patient, I ask myself what she would do, how she would handle it. She left quite a mark on this place. She left a mark on all of us. Jessica poured herself coffee. Emma's old mug was still in the cabinet. No one had thrown it away. Do you think she's okay? Jessica asked. Wherever she is? Yes, Harrison said with certainty. People like Emma. They're survivors. They're protectors. She's exactly where she needs to be. I hope she knows we appreciate what she did, what she gave up to keep us safe. I think she knows. They sat in comfortable silence, somewhere far away. Emma Reyes was walking through a refugee camp. Children ran past her. Laughing despite their circumstances, she knelt beside an elderly woman with a fever, checked her temperature, prepared medication. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency. Nurse and soldier. Caregiver and warrior. Always both. Never just one. Thank you, the elderly woman whispered in a language Emma had learned years ago. You're welcome, Emma replied in the same language. She stood. Moved to the next patient. There were hundreds more who needed help. There always were. And Emma would be there in whatever role was needed. Whatever. Identity served the mission. She'd spent 23 years being underestimated, overlooked, invisible, and she'd used that invisibility to do extraordinary things, to save lives, to stop criminals, to protect the innocent. She wouldn't stop now. The sun set. Over the refugee camp, Emma worked through the night, as she always did, as she always would. Because some people weren't meant for recognition. Some people weren't meant for glory. Some people were meant to serve in silence, to be the shield that no one sees, the hand that guides without grasping, the voice that calms in. Chaos. Emma Reyes was one of those people, and she wouldn't have it any other way. Years later, a young medical student would ask Dr. Harrison about the best nurse he'd ever worked with. He would pause, think carefully about his answer. There was a woman named Emma, he would say. She taught me that competence looks like humility, that strength can wear scrubs, that the people you underestimate are sometimes the ones who save you. Is she still here? The student would ask. No, Harrison would say with a sad smile. She had other places to be. Other people to help? Will she come back? Harrison would shake his head. People like Emma don't come back. They move forward. Always forward, to wherever they're needed most. The student would nod, not fully understanding, but Dr. Harrison understood. He understood that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear. Sometimes they serve coffee. Sometimes they serve coffee. Sometimes they work in the shadows. And sometimes, just sometimes, they save the world one patient at a time. Emma Reyes would continue her work in hospitals and war zones, in clinics and conflict areas, wherever people needed help, wherever evil needed to be stopped, she would be there, silent, steady, unstoppable. The badge she wore might change. The name she used might vary, but the mission remained the same. Protect, serve, save, always. Save. This is the legacy of Colonel Emma Reyes. A woman that the world would never fully know, but whose impact would be felt by thousands. A silent guardian, a humble hero, a nurse who was so much more and somewhere in the world right now. She's still working, still helping, still being exactly who she was always meant to be. The end.